Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you love captivating stories about men transforming into women in unique and fascinating ways, then be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Now, let's jump right into today's tale.
The scent of coffee hit Erin before she even stepped into the kitchen. Rich, earthy, with hints of chocolate and something vaguely nutty, a far cry from the thin, acidic brew she used to down like medicine in her previous life. Now coffee was an experience rather than just fuel, another small pleasure that had shifted from functional to sensory. She padded out of her room in fuzzy socks and an oversized hoodie, her hair still a little wild from sleep, and found Madeline at the stove, pouring hot water over a French press, already dressed, already awake. Madeline stood with her back to the doorway, her movements precise and deliberate as she added water in a slow, circular motion. She was dressed in slim black jeans and a loose white button-down, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, put together in that effortless way that always made Erin feel slightly disheveled by comparison. Too early for a Sunday. Too thoughtful a silence. The kitchen clock read 7:32, an ungodly hour for a weekend, especially after their late night with wine and movies. Madeline wasn't typically an early riser on days off. She valued her sleep with the fierce devotion of someone who viewed it as both art and science. Her presence in the kitchen at this hour, fully dressed and focused on making coffee, rather than grabbing the easiest caffeine available, suggested purpose rather than habit. "Morning," Erin said, voice soft, almost cautious. The word hung in the air, tentative as a peace offering. After last night's unspoken tension, Erin wasn't sure where they stood, whether the strange moment on the couch had passed or merely gone underground, waiting to resurface. Madeline glanced over her shoulder and smiled. "Hey, sleep okay?" Her tone was neutral, friendly, no trace of last night's hesitation or the odd guarded expression that had appeared when Erin mentioned her feelings for Michael. But something about the careful casualness of her posture suggested she'd been waiting, perhaps even rehearsing what came next. Erin nodded, then leaned against the counter, wrapping her hands around the warmth of the mug Madeline handed her without asking. The ceramic was smooth and pleasantly hot against her palms, the mug one of her favorites, a deep blue with silver constellations that appeared when filled with hot liquid. A perfect morning mug, weighty enough to feel substantial, but not so heavy it tired the hand. They stood in silence for a few moments, the only sound the faint clink of ceramic and the occasional creak of the old apartment settling. Beyond the kitchen window, the city was just waking up, Sunday morning quiet, with fewer cars and the occasional early jogger passing on the sidewalk below. The light had that particular golden quality of early morning, turning the familiar view into something softer, more forgiving. Erin breathed in deeply, then let it out. "So," she started, eyes fixed on the swirling coffee in her cup, "I was thinking about all of this. Last night." The words felt too big for her mouth, too significant for the quiet kitchen on a Sunday morning. But they'd been building all night, tumbling around her mind as she'd lain awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying her date with Michael and Madeline's strange reaction afterward. Madeline raised an eyebrow. "All of what?" Her tone was careful, not dismissive, but not entirely inviting either. As if she knew exactly what Erin meant, but wanted to hear her say it explicitly. "The punishment," Erin said quietly. "The dating other men part. I know it was meant to teach me a lesson. About how I treated people, about sincerity, about seeing women as people and not puzzles. But," the words emerged halting and uncertain, like she was feeling her way through darkness. This wasn't a conversation she'd planned to have so soon, but something about Madeline's early morning presence made it seem inevitable. She hesitated, Michael's not a puzzle. He's not a test. And I don't want to risk hurting him just because I'm supposed to check off boxes. I was hoping, I guess. I just wanted to ask if you were okay with me not doing the rest of it. The request hung in the air between them, both simple and immensely complicated. On the surface, she was asking for a rule change. Beneath that, she was admitting to feelings deeper than either of them had anticipated. Madeline didn't answer right away. She just stared into her coffee, lips pressed into a thoughtful line. Her fingers tapped lightly against the ceramic, a soft rhythm that betrayed her outward stillness. She wasn't surprised by the question, that much was clear. But something about it seemed to require careful consideration, weighing of consequences Erin couldn't fully see. The silence stretched. Erin's heart thumped. Each second felt weighted, significant, like watching someone defuse a bomb, not knowing which wire they would cut. Erin resisted the urge to fill the silence with nervous chatter, to backtrack or qualify her request. Instead, she waited, clutching her coffee mug like a talisman. Then finally, Madeline spoke. "I was going to talk to you about that." Her voice was steady, matter-of-fact. No anger, no surprise, just calm certainty. Erin blinked. "You were." The idea that Madeline had been contemplating the same issue, perhaps even reaching similar conclusions, hadn't occurred to her. In her midnight ruminations, she'd imagined resistance, perhaps even argument, not this quiet confirmation. Madeline nodded, setting her mug down, turning to face her fully now. "I've been thinking about it all night." "That explains the early morning French press," Erin observed, attempting to lighten the mood. "I thought maybe you'd developed a sudden interest in birdwatching or sunrise yoga." "Please," Madeline snorted. "The only thing that would get me up at dawn voluntarily would be a fire or Ryan Gosling making pancakes in our kitchen." "I'll..." The brief exchange eased some of the tension, but the serious undercurrent remained. Madeline's expression was thoughtful, her movements deliberate as she adjusted her position against the counter. She leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, not defensive, just firm. "I gave you the rule about dating other men because you needed to learn how it felt to be on the other side of casual. Disposable. Like something that could be picked up and put down based on convenience or curiosity. You needed to feel that." Her tone wasn't accusatory, but there was a certain firmness to it. A reminder of why they were here, of what had precipitated this strange experiment in the first place. The memory of Ethan's casual cruelty, his detached approach to dating, hung in the air between them. Erin nodded, guilt prickling in her chest. "And I did. Trust me." "How?" "Oh." The memory of her brief forays into dating as Erin flashed through her mind. The awkward coffee with a graphic designer who spent the entire time explaining fonts to her. The uncomfortable drinks with a lawyer whose eyes never quite made it to her face. Each interaction had been a lesson in vulnerability, in being assessed and sometimes dismissed based on superficial criteria. "It's different when you're the prey instead of the hunter," she added quietly. "When you're the one wondering if you're interesting enough, pretty enough, worth a second glance." "But," Madeline continued, softer now, "Michael's not someone you use to learn a lesson. He's not a stepping stone." There was something like respect in her voice when she mentioned Michael, an acknowledgement that he existed beyond his role in Erin's punishment, that he was a person with his own feelings and dignity. She looked down, then back up at Erin. "So I'm changing the finish line." The words landed with quiet finality, like the closing of a book. Not angry or severe, but definitive nonetheless. Erin blinked. "Wait. What?" She'd prepared for resistance, for reminders of the original agreement, perhaps even for disappointment. This pivot, this unexpected change of terms, caught her completely off guard. "You heard me," Madeline replied, a hint of amusement creeping into her voice at Erin's obvious confusion. Consider it a contract amendment. No more other men. No more ticking off names on some cosmic list of karmic justice. Madeline's voice was clear, deliberate. You stay with him. Just him. For 12 months. That's the new deal. No, you give him a real relationship, honest, consistent, and committed. And at the end of that year, if it's still real, if you've grown, if this wasn't just a fluke of infatuation. She paused, reaching for her coffee as if to fortify herself for what came next. The morning light caught in her dark hair, illuminating hints of auburn that were usually invisible. Her expression was serious, but not unkind, like a doctor delivering manageable but significant news. Then we'll talk about turning you back. The words landed with the weight of a stone, in still water, sending ripples through Erin's consciousness. Not a promise, not a guarantee, but a possibility. A potential end to this strange limbo. Or perhaps a new beginning. Erin's breath caught. 12 months, she echoed. A year. 4 seasons. Holidays, birthdays, ordinary days, strung together into something substantial. A real relationship, with all its complexities, and joys, and challenges. Not just a few dates or a brief affair, but something with depth, with consequences. That's 3 times longer than the original plan, she said quietly, trying to process the implications. Madeline nodded. It's longer, yes. But it's real. And if you hurt him, if you treat this like a game or a loophole, I'll make sure you stay in lip gloss and hormone spirals for eternity. Got it. The threat was delivered with a smile. But Erin didn't doubt her seriousness. Madeline's powers might have seemed whimsical in their application, but there was nothing light-hearted about the consequences of crossing her. Do I need to sign in blood, or will my pinky swear suffice? Erin asked, attempting humor to mask the flutter of anxiety in her chest. Your word is enough, Madeline replied, her expression softening slightly. Despite your colorful history with women, you've never broken a promise to me. Erin gave a shaky laugh, half nerves, half relief. Got it. Besides, Madeline continued, this isn't just about punishment anymore. This is about giving you a chance at something real. Michael seems like a good man. The kind who doesn't come around often. He is, Erin agreed, thinking of his attentiveness, his genuine interest, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. He's different. Different how? Madeline pressed, her tone curious rather than challenging. Erin considered the question, trying to articulate something that felt more intuitive than logical. He listens. Really listens, not just waiting for his turn to talk. And he notices things, not just the obvious stuff, but small details. Like how I always hold my coffee mug with both hands, or how I tuck my hair behind my ear when I'm nervous. Observant. Madeline nodded. That's rare. And kind, Erin added. Not in a showy way, but consistently. The way he treated the waitstaff, how he made sure I was comfortable with every decision, even just where to sit in the restaurant. Madeline picked up her coffee again and took a sip, her expression unreadable now. I've never seen you look at someone like that before. Like you're scared because it's good. The observation was uncomfortably accurate. A precise naming of the emotion Erin had been trying to identify since last night. Not just attraction or excitement, but a specific kind of fear that came with recognizing something valuable and not wanting to lose it. When I was Ethan, Erin said slowly, relationships never scared me because they were always disposable. If one didn't work out, there was always another woman around the corner. But this, she gestured vaguely at herself. At the situation. This is different. There's more at stake now. Because you could get hurt. Madeline asked. Because we both could, Erin replied. And because it matters. He matters. It is good, Erin said quietly. And I don't want to mess it up. The admission felt vulnerable, more honest than she'd intended. But there was relief in saying it aloud, in acknowledging the genuine connection that had formed so unexpectedly. Then, don't. 2 simple words, delivered with the straightforwardness that was Madeline's hallmark. No lengthy advice, no elaborate cautions, just the core truth. Don't mess it up. Choose differently. Be better. And just like that, the new rule settled between them. Heavier than the last. But somehow, it felt right. The kitchen fell quiet again, but the silence had changed, no longer tense with unspoken thoughts, but comfortable with shared understanding. Madeline moved to the refrigerator, pulling out eggs and butter with the air of someone shifting to practical matters. Hungry? She asked, already reaching for a mixing bowl. I'm thinking omelets. You can chop the vegetables if you promise not to slice off a finger daydreaming about your boyfriend. He's not my... Erin started automatically, then stopped herself. Under the new arrangement, that's exactly what Michael would be. Not just a date or a potential prospect, but her boyfriend. The thought was simultaneously terrifying and thrilling. I'll maintain all my digits, thank you very much. We'll see, Madeline replied skeptically, handing her a bell pepper and a knife. Just remember, blood doesn't enhance the flavor profile I'm going for. As Erin began carefully dicing the pepper, she felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. The path ahead was longer than she'd anticipated, more significant in its implications, but it felt right in a way the original punishment never had. Because this wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about who Erin wanted to be, and who she might be with. Not just a lesson in empathy or a cosmic balancing of scales, but a genuine opportunity to experience connection from a new perspective. To build something meaningful with someone who saw her, really saw her, and liked what he found. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting everything in soft gold. Outside, the city continued to wake, Sunday stretching before them unhurried and full of possibility. And inside, in the quiet of their kitchen, a new understanding had taken root, one that felt less like restriction and more like release. 2 weeks later, Erin was in her room, standing in front of her full-length mirror, smoothing down the curve of her dress for the 7th time in 5 minutes. It was a soft, silky number in a deep burgundy shade that hugged her in all the right places, but still whispered elegance more than seduction. The fabric caught the light as she moved, creating subtle shadows that accentuated the curves she was still getting used to. 6 weeks into her transformation, and her body had started to feel like her own. No longer a costume she was wearing, but a physical reality she inhabited with increasing confidence. She turned to the side, assessing her silhouette with critical eyes. The dress fell just above her knees, showing enough leg to be enticing without crossing into overtly provocative territory. The neckline dipped in a tasteful V that revealed the delicate gold pendant, a small star on a thin chain that Michael had given her last weekend, just because. The memory of his face when she'd opened the small velvet box still made her stomach flip, that combination of nervousness and hope that spoke of something deeper than casual dating. She checked her lipstick. Again. The rich berry shade complemented the dress perfectly, making her lips look fuller, more inviting. She'd spent 45 minutes on her makeup, aiming for that elusive, effortless look that actually required surgical precision and the patience of a saint. Foundation blended seamlessly, eyes enhanced with subtle shadow and mascara that made her lashes look impossibly long, a touch of highlighter on her cheekbones to catch the light. Her hands were a little shaky, not from nerves exactly, or at least, not just nerves. This strange, electric anticipation had been building for days. Ever since Michael had whispered in her ear after their last date, his voice low and intimate. "Next time, let's not say goodnight at your door." She'd nodded, suddenly unable to form words, her skin hot everywhere his breath had touched. She heard the door creak behind her, followed by the familiar clink of glass. Madeline's voice drifted in, casual and knowing, as always. "Wow. You're trying to kill the man, huh?" Erin turned, giving a nervous laugh. "Too much." She gestured vaguely at herself, suddenly second, guessing the hours of careful preparation, the 3 shopping trips it had taken to find this exact dress, the YouTube tutorials she'd studied to perfect the smoky eye that wasn't too smoky, the sultry but not vampish. Madeline, barefoot and carrying a dangerously full glass of red wine, leaned against the doorframe, eyeing her like a wine critic sizing up a vintage. No, it's perfect. You look like the kind of woman men write bad poetry about." She wore her usual loungewear, oversized t-shirt, leggings, hair piled haphazardly on top of her head, but somehow managed to look effortlessly beautiful even in her dishevelment. She took a casual sip of wine, the rim of the glass leaving a faint stain that matched her own burgundy lipstick. "That is not reassuring." "What? You'd prefer to inspire good poetry?" Madeline raised an eyebrow. "Trust me. The bad, desperate, I can't sleep, because you exist kind is much more flattering than some cerebral sonnet about your intellectual virtues." Madeline took a sip. "It's meant to be." She crossed the room with the fluid grace that always made Erin slightly envious, perching on the edge of the bed and tucking one foot beneath her. "Besides, if he doesn't fumble his words a little when he sees you in that dress, I'll eat my favorite Jimmy Choo's." Erin turned back to the mirror, fixing the clasp on her necklace, fingers fumbling slightly. The small star pendant kept slipping as she tried to secure it, her usually dexterous fingers clumsy with anticipation. She'd changed the necklace 3 times before settling on this one, Michael's gift, a tangible symbol of their evolving connection. Madeline tilted her head. "You good? You?" There was genuine concern beneath the casual inquiry, a softness in her eyes that appeared only in these unguarded moments. Despite her teasing, and sometimes sharp humor, Madeline's protectiveness had only grown over the past 2 weeks, her investment in Erin's happiness becoming increasingly evident. Erin hesitated, and kind of terrified. The admission felt both obvious and significant, a verbal acknowledgement of the tension that had been growing between her and Michael. The natural progression from flirtation to deeper connection, from chemistry to genuine intimacy. Madeline walked in slowly, taking the chair at the vanity behind Erin, watching her through the mirror. "Because tonight's the night." Her tone was matter-of-fact rather than salacious, an acknowledgement of what they both knew was coming. After 6 dates, dozens of increasingly heated goodnight kisses, and text exchanges that had grown progressively more suggestive, the trajectory was clear. Erin nodded, cheeks flushing. "Yeah. I mean, we've been on, 6 dates. We've made out enough times that I nearly blacked out once." The memory of their last date flashed vividly in her mind, Michael pressing her against her apartment door. One hand tangled in her hair, the other at her waist, his mouth hot and insistent against hers. She'd felt her knees actually weaken, like some heroine in a bodice ripper novel, her entire body electric with wanting him. Madeline smirked. "The against-the-door night." "How did you—" Erin started, then stopped herself. "Of course you know about that. Your lipstick was completely gone, and your hair looked like you'd stuck your finger in an electrical socket." Madeline replied with a grin. "Doesn't take a detective to connect those particular dots." Erin groaned, covering her face. "Don't remind me. I had to sit down afterward like someone had unplugged my brain." If I remember correctly, you walked into the apartment, said holy shit, approximately 17 times. Then collapsed on the couch and stared at the ceiling for 20 minutes. Madeline confirmed, her expression a blend of amusement and affection. It was both pathetic and adorable. Madeline chuckled. And now. Her eyes met Erin's in the mirror, searching for something beyond the nervous excitement, some deeper truth about where Erin's head was at this moment. Erin met her gaze in the mirror. Now, I'm scared. And excited. Which somehow feels worse. Worse how? Madeline pressed gently. Like standing at the edge of a really high diving board. Erin tried to explain. You want to jump, you're even excited about it, but there's still that moment of holy shit, this is happening right before you do. How scared? The question was direct, but gentle. A friend checking that excitement hadn't completely overridden judgment. Erin turned, finally facing her friend directly. I still have this flicker of that old mindset. The guy part. The one that's like, you're not supposed to feel like this. You're not supposed to want this. She touched her chest gently. But I do. And it's not about sex, not really. It's about intimacy. Letting someone see you. All of you. Her voice dropped on the last words, a confession of vulnerability rather than desire. Sex was straightforward. Intimacy was where the real risk lay. Madeline's expression softened, the teasing fading into something more protective. And you trust him? The question cut to the heart of the matter, past the physical attraction, past the nervous excitement of a new relationship, to the fundamental question of safety, both emotional and physical. Erin nodded without hesitation. Completely. That's the scary part. He's so kind, so present. It's like he's not just falling for who I've become. He's falling for who I am, even the parts I still don't fully understand yet. Over the past 2 weeks, her relationship with Michael had deepened in ways she hadn't anticipated. Their conversations had moved beyond surface level, getting to know you exchanges to genuine sharing of histories, beliefs, fears. He'd told her about his parents' divorce when he was 12, about his dream of starting his own architectural firm someday, about his irrational fear of eels after a childhood aquarium incident. And she'd shared as much of herself as she could, within the constraints of her unusual situation, her love of old films, her secret passion for terrible sci-fi novels, her complex relationship with her absent father. Madeline stood, walking over and placing a gentle hand on Erin's shoulder. Then, you're ready. The simple validation carried the weight of permission, of blessing. Not that Erin needed Madeline's approval, but there was comfort in having her confidence, her support. You think so? Erin asked, seeking reassurance despite herself. I know so, Madeline confirmed. You've been ready since that first coffee shop meeting. Everything since then has just been you catching up to what was already there. Erin laughed nervously. Oh, the female part of me is practically pacing in heels. But the last little bit of the guy I used to be is in the corner, screaming into a pillow. The image was ridiculous enough to break some of the tension, to acknowledge the peculiar duality she still navigated even after weeks in this new form. Part of her was experiencing these feelings, these desires, for the first time, with all the heightened emotions and physical responses that entailed. Another part observed from a distance, conflicted by the sheer intensity of these new sensations. Tell him to shut up, Madeline said with a grin. He had his chance. Besides, she added, taking another sip of wine, that guy was a terrible kisser. At least according to Maria Delgado from accounting, and let me tell you, that woman knows her way around a mouth. She said that. Erin gasped, momentarily distracted from her nervousness. To you. We had an enlightening conversation in the ladies' room at last year's holiday party. Madeline replied with a mischievous smile. Let's just say tequila makes her refreshingly candid about her dating history. Oh, God, Erin groaned, covering her face again. I don't want to know anymore. Smart choice, Madeline agreed. But my point is, your old self wasn't exactly leaving a trail of satisfied customers. Maybe this version of you knows something he didn't. Erin smiled, then looked back at the mirror. This time, she saw a woman. Not pretending, not performing, just being. The burgundy dress, the carefully applied makeup, the styled hair, all of it felt less like a costume now, and more like an expression of something genuine. Not a disguise, but a revelation. I think I'm ready, she whispered to herself. The admission felt like release. An exhale after holding her breath too long. Ready not just for tonight, but for whatever came next. For the vulnerability, for the connection, for the new experiences waiting on the other side of her hesitation. Madeline raised her glass. The first times. The good ones. The real ones. Her voice had softened, the teasing edge replaced by genuine emotion. For all her sarcasm and sharp wit, Madeline had proven herself to be deeply invested in Erin's happiness, in her growth beyond the original punishment. Erin picked up her perfume, gave herself a quick spritz behind the ears, and turned to her best friend. The scent bloomed around her. Something with notes of jasmine and vanilla. Feminine, but not cloying. Another layer of preparation, another small ritual of readiness. To letting go, she said softly. Letting go of fear. Of hesitation. Of the last tendrils of her old identity that kept her from fully embracing the present moment, the current reality. Madeline clinked her glass against an imaginary one. And to holding on. Hi. Holding on to what mattered, to connection, to authenticity, to the unexpected joy that had emerged from what was meant to be a punishment. To Michael, who had somehow become central to this strange journey without even knowing the path they were walking. The doorbell rang, cutting through the moment like a knife through silk. Erin's heart jumped, the sound triggering a fresh wave of butterflies in her stomach. He's early, she said, glancing at the clock, her voice rising slightly in pitch. Eager, Madeline corrected with a knowing smile. Ah, there's a difference. She stood, straightening Erin's necklace with a gentle touch, then stepped back to assess the final result. Perfect, she declared. Now go answer the door before he thinks you've changed your mind. Erin took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and moved toward the bedroom door with more confidence than she felt. At the threshold, she paused, turning back to Madeline with a small smile of gratitude. Thank you, she said simply. Don't thank me, Madeline replied, raising her glass in a final toast. Just enjoy every minute. And maybe take tomorrow off work. Something tells me you'll need the recovery time. With a laugh that dispelled the last of her nerves, Erin headed for the front door. Toward Michael. Toward the night that waited. Toward the edge of something new.